Hi everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about Levi Colwell and some of the really fun things he does in possession that I think are going to be really helpful to his time at Chelsea next year and also to Chelsea as a whole, where I think ball progression from the center backs wasn't as much of a strength this year as it has been in years past. And there's some interesting things he does, also some things that I think are weaknesses, but we can talk about them. So the first thing to kind of think about is that Colwell is very, very good at using wide players as decoys to play inside. So I'll show you a couple clips and then I'll talk about what I mean on a tactics board. But he does a very good job of getting the widest midfielder to deal with the fullback and then closing his hips to slide it between lines. So you can see there's one into Matoma. Here's another one. He pulls Mahrez out. Boom, split into whoever the 10 is. Here's another one. Mahrez gets too wide. Boom, plays inside again. Here's another one. Mahrez gets too wide. Boom, plays for a set. So you can see there's just a bunch of these clips, right? And so what I want you to think about is as the ball arrives, right, Colwell has a couple options. It's going to be very difficult for him to play back inside because pressure is coming from inside. Normally, this player will be marked pretty tight, so we're talking about playing on this half of the pitch. It's very easy to play this fullback, right? And so a lot of times teams will set up their presses or their defensive blocks so that as this ball travels, the winger gets there, the 8 comes across, the 9 comes across, everybody locks, and now you're stuck and you have to go back around the long way. What we see Colwell do a really good job is he's very calm even as this pressure comes, so that once this player starts leaving, he can close his hips and go into the winger. He can close his hips and go into the 9. He has all the options there available to him. And if this player stays inside, it's easy enough to just go around with pace so that this player can enter the next line with the ball. So you've seen that in a couple clips so far, but we can see a few more. Right. Sometimes he gets stuck really wide and and I'll show some of those clips after, but he'll end up forcing grenades into midfield a little bit where there isn't the room to play. So this one comes off, but you can see the next one, we're very much stuck here. And again, it doesn't end up being super dangerous, but it's probably better to hit the channel here. The Arsenal clips are really interesting because Arsenal press almost like a diamond. So playing through into the diamond is generally quite difficult. You want to play around often and switch quickly if you can. But Colwell does a really good job of kind of stretching this window out to get Saka out here. This is very tight, but he does a good job here. Right? Sometimes he plays these passes with crazy pace on them, and they're very difficult to deal with for these players, where it's just, I'm getting the pass between lines. We don't have a choice. I'm playing the pass now. So you have this one, right, where there's way too much pace on this for McAllister to do anything with this in one. Even this is a very difficult pass. The set to Gilmore in one is very difficult. There's no round the corner inside. So he ends up getting stripped for a juicy turnover here. But he does a pretty good job. Again, here's another one. So now this is where we see the opposite scenario, right? Winger stays inside. This window is difficult to play through. Even if he gets it, there's pressure behind him. He doesn't have the option to bounce. So winger inside, we can play around with pace. And now McAllister, or Estupinan is into the next line. You see the same thing with a little rotation on this one, right? So you have the fullback goes high. This is your 10, comes a little bit lower to receive. And then you're able to play the winger at full width. Right? How many times have we seen this with Matoma this year, who gets it facing forward and is able to dribble? This is something at Chelsea, I think, particularly with Mudryk on the left, or if it's Sterling, is one that you could see, Chilwell bombs high, you have an 8 or a 10 or somebody pops low to give you underneath options still, but your winger is able to receive with an advantage instead of having to go into a 2v4. They're already past the winger and they can drive inside. One of the other things that Brighton show a lot of is these kind of interior combinations. So they'll play, instead of playing wide, they'll play lots of actions with the 6 or with one of the 2 9s, because Brighton kind of go 4-2-4 in possession a lot, but to play for bounces underneath for these players. And these are a very different kind of pass than the first one we showed, because the first one we showed is, I can really zip this in because I want him to be able to turn. So it's more about getting it to him, and then he will accelerate the next action. But if I want this player to play in 1, I'm very sensitive to the pace that I put on it. So we can see a couple different things here, right? So this one, he plays into one of the players coming low. Again, the weight of pass is perfect for him to play in 1. Here's another one. Weight of pass for him to play in 1 is clean. One thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is that Brighton are very patterny with their buildy stuff, right? So like he resets the pattern to the middle so everyone gets set up. Watch Gilmore here, and I think this is Gilmore. Watch Gilmore and how he sets things up in relation to McAllister, right? Everybody's getting ready to start the pattern. You have your 2 9s low. Your wingers are pinning high and wide. So like Arsenal, their press is a bit of a mess here. But everything is set up from this pattern. Pochettino is a very patterny guy in the final third, but not really in the build phase. So I'm kind of curious to see what he looks like when things are a little bit more freeform. But either way, great entry pass, good weight. Right, Ferguson should probably do better with that one. But generally, I think this is something he does really well. And it's something Thiago Silva does generally pretty well as well. So I think this is a neat little way to carry that over. One issue that I have with Colwell, and it happens quite a bit, is he often gets stuck too wide. So I showed the 2 clips before in the City game where he gets stuck wide and he just plays the crazy ones between lines. But sometimes he's a little bit too wide and the pressure takes away the line, so now there's no really ability to bait outside to play in. He plays a lot of just like jammy ones into midfield that don't really help and can be pretty bad transitions the other way. So like here's one, he tries to play the 9. Again, it's like a fine pass, but it's very unlikely that he's going to be able to turn and do anything productive with that. Here's another one where he's stuck on the line and now we don't have any options to play feet, so he tries a depth pass. This one, okay, it's not a great pass, but once you get here, like your safety pass here is probably to play the 9 in depth, and instead we get really jammy inside and get transitioned. Okay, so just little things that, again, he's very young, and maybe this comes off and you get a good one, but little things to be mindful of. One of the other things I wanted to look at was his passing against a more compact block, right? So City and Arsenal press a lot in the clips I showed, but Nottingham Forest defend a lot deeper, a lot more compact. It's also a back 3. And I was mostly impressed, but I think he has some of the same negative tendencies that we see when he gets stuck too wide. So sometimes lots of really good things. He does a very good job to dribble and engage people in the block so that when he ends up playing wide, which we see a lot of times when you're playing against a very deep team, you can end up just passing kind of in a U shape around them. He does a very good job of engaging the people in the block so that when he eventually does play this, Estupiñán is prepped to go into the next line. Or if he plays inside, these windows are open enough that he can play through. Whereas if he just kind of meanders and plays this pass from 5-7 yards back, it's very likely that it gets cut out. But everything is to draw people towards him, to open up space in the next line. But then we see kind of the negative side of things. This window isn't really open. Like, this is very difficult to play through, and it's just, well, I'm getting it there. I don't care. So just a little thing. Good way to pass, to give people speed. Everything's to the front foot to get them going forward. These are little, like, De Zerbi things where very patterny coaches, Sarri was like this at Chelsea, but it was with Jorginho's, like, everything is very clear about what foot the ball is being played to, and the detail is very, very high. And these things help. But again, a great entry pass. Doesn't do a great job with it. One thing I really like, so you can't see Dunk here because my face is in the way. Maybe if I move it. Move it down here. One thing I really like is his proximity to his center back partner, and his height is very good. So we see stuff like this where most center backs, if we watch the start of the clip, are going to stay in line with Dunk. So if the ball comes, he receives and he goes around. Colwell's already getting high for two reasons. One, if this ball comes through McAllister, he's linking and going the other way, and he's already bypassed 3-4 players with his positioning. The second is that Dunk can still get this ball to him here, right? He's not going to be crazy in here where Ewini can block it out, but he's still at a good height to receive. Right? Boom. And now he's immediately into the next line. 1, 2, 3 defenders taken out. As soon as he goes wide here, we've already broken the line of 4, and you're into the last 6 defenders, and you've still got all this depth to attack into. Another good engage moment, right? These are just little things that they're not crazy, but right, we've seen so many times, like Badiashile maybe just plays this straight to a Stupinan a touch earlier, and then the widest midfielder comes in defends, the wingback comes in defends, and there's no like shrinking of things to make it difficult, but just by probing inside first, like if he wanted, he could play Matoma in depth here, and this is a great action. Or maybe he can dribble inside and connect the 9, or whatever you want. But all these little things, if he plays the pass right away, like it's an extra 2 yards you don't have. The other and last thing that I really, really like from Colwell is he does an excellent job of playing passes in depth when there's no ball pressure and they've set up their runs. So there's a couple times where Forest defend a little bit higher and there's no ball pressure. Can we tee up a run in behind? The way to pass is terrific. Okay, I think his Superman was offside on that one. But same again. He's got great shape to it. He's eager to play it. These little things that Chelsea haven't played a ton of over the past 2 years. But with Nkunku and with all and Mudryk and Sterling, I think this is something we can get to see a little bit more from Chelsea.